The day has finally come, probably sooner than we all expected. SBF has been officially arrested by Bahamian authorities. The statement from the Attorney General states that on December 12th, 2022, the Office of the Attorney General of the Bahamas is announcing the arrest by the Royal Bahamas Police Force of Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, former CEO of FTX. SBF's arrest followed receipt of formal notification from the United States that it has filed criminal charges against SBF and is likely to request his extradition. This is absolutely crazy. The day has finally come. In today's show, I will be discussing maybe some of the ramifications off the back of his arrest, what it might mean, as well as going into some weird facts to do with this arrest and the really weird timing of this arrest and maybe the hidden agenda behind this arrest. But it is huge, huge news. They said as a result of the notification received and the material provided therewith, it was deemed appropriate for the Attorney General to seek SBF's arrest and hold him in custody pursuant to our nation's Extradition Act. Now, Bahamas Attorney General Ryan Pinder said that the United States had filed unspecified criminal charges against Bankman-Fried and was likely to request his extradition. So the Bahamas arrest actually came off the back of the United States filing charges for Sam Bankman-Fried to be arrested. Now, this is very interesting because this is the day before Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to be speaking in Congress, but he was actually arrested in the Bahamas the day before he could even get to the US due to the US filing. So USA Damian Williams said earlier this evening on the official US Attorney Twitter page, Bahamian authorities arrested Sam Bankman-Fried at the request of the US government based on a sealed indictment filed by SDNY. We expect to move to unseal the indictment in the morning and we'll have more to say at that time. So I assume a lot more details will be coming out around this, but they also said that they were also looking at other members of FTX. So I think Sam could be the first pin to drop here, but it's expected that there could be a lot more members of SBF that could also potentially be implicated. We know that a lot of them are probably hiding in different places around the globe, but there are a few ones in particular, like Dan and obviously Caroline, who are highly in the public eye, who, there'll be question marks over their arrests too over the coming days off the back of the Sam Bankman-Fried arrest in the Bahamas. But as I said, I think it's weird timing that SBF is arrested by Bahamian authorities the day before his congressional hearing in the US. So if you guys didn't know, he was supposed to testify in front of Congress tomorrow at 10 a.m. On Tuesday. He said on Twitter that he would appear before the House Committee on Financial Services as they had their hearing scheduled to investigate the collapse of FTX, and he would most likely testify remotely, according to a person familiar with the matter. So people thought that he would actually maybe step on US soil. I think it was more likely that he would appear remotely, but that doesn't even seem to be the case anymore now that he's arrested. And obviously he can't appear in front of Congress either in person or remotely if he's arrested or if he's in a jail cell. Interestingly, he tweeted just 2 hours before this actually all started going down, where DB said that there was an inner circle at FTX where there was a chat group called Wire Fraud that was used to send secret information about operations in the lead up to the company's spectacular failure. And he denied this accusation that he wasn't a member of the inner circle and that he wasn't sure a group actually existed just 2 hours before his arrest. And I've seen a couple funny tweets that SBF spent his last day actually doing what he loved, lying nonstop on Twitter, high on meth, and rambling on Twitter Spaces as are his favorite activities to do. So he said, in terms of his hearing in the US tomorrow, that he still doesn't have access to much of the data, professional or personal. So there's a limit to what he'll be able to say and won't be as helpful as he'd like. But as the committee thinks it would be useful, I'm willing to testify on the 13th. So if you were to testify, which obviously isn't happening anymore, then I think we could all kind of agree that it would be kind of a washed down, diluted version of a hearing. Because just based on some of the recent interviews that SBS has taken part in on YouTube, on Twitter, a lot of facts are kind of being left out, whether that's strategic from a legal point of view, or whether that's to kind of paint the picture that he's been painting as kind of this good guy to get retail on his side. a lot of the information has been diluted. So whether we would have gotten anything new or anything that really helpful that would work towards the case tomorrow is anyone's guess, but I don't think that would have been the case. And I also saw a funny tweet that Zushu, Kyle, and Do Kwon are literally shaking right now off the back of his arrest. Maybe they're next, but I do think right now the focus is on FTX. It's interesting because yesterday I did a tweet. I'll just get this tweet up. Obviously off the back of a lot of the Binance FUD, you've probably seen the Binance FUD in crypto. There's been, a lot of rumors. Some of it has data behind it. Some of it's kind of baseless surrounding whether Binance is insolvent, whether Binance is committing crimes. I actually said yesterday when DB posted the Reuters article of US prosecutors considering charging Binance and executives for possible money laundering that they should be going after SBF instead. I said instead they should be going after SBF. Why don't they stop wasting their time on Binance? And it's funny because literally just like 11 hours after I did this tweet, after the Reuters article came out, that's exactly what happened as SBF was officially arrested by Bahamian authorities. So it's just a couple important things to note off the back of this and what it actually means. Firstly, we don't have clarity over what this arrest actually means. So we don't know if he will testify. We are still waiting on the US attorney to update us in the morning. So we don't quite know what this means. Will he be tried in the US? Will he be tried in the Bahamas? I imagine he could be extradited to the US. That's certainly a possibility, but we still don't have clarity over that. So that's something that we do have to watch out for. And definitely the arrest by the Bahamian authorities, I think, is a step in the right direction, but there's a lot more to play out in this SBF saga. There's a lot more information that we need. But as I said, it's interesting that yesterday I said that Binance, that they shouldn't be going after Binance, they should be going after FTX, and that's exactly what happened the next day. Dubai actually just put out a law enforcement cooperation deal with the US Department of Justice, where they're now going to be agreeing on sharing certain judicial information cross-continent, which will help Dubai and the US work together on some types of cases. This is quite interesting that this happened the day before the SBF news as well, because now Dubai isn't really any place that you'd want to be running or hiding if you are a criminal, especially a crypto fugitive. Like I guess Shushu, Kyle, and Do Kwon, who also have their own issues kind of facing them, Alex Mashinsky as well. Dubai now might not be the place to run to, given the fact that they're going forward with judicial cooperation and assistance in criminal investigations and prosecution. So Caroline, I don't know where she's hiding, if she's hiding in Dubai, but she better watch out, because I don't think SBF is the last person to be potentially arrested in this saga. I think there are many more to come, but just because he's arrested, remember guys, this doesn't mean it's the end. That he still needs to be tried, he still needs to testify, he can post bail. Like, there's a whole judicial process that needs to play out now. So the arrest is the very first step in a very long process, but I do imagine the Chapter 11 bankruptcy proceedings and SBF's personal trial himself, these will take many years to play out, especially Chapter 11. I mean, look at what's happened to Voyager and Celsius and BlockFi, how played out those proceedings are. Look at Mt. Gox from 2013. That took 8-9 years, and we still haven't really seen a final verdict on that either. So these cases take a long time to play out. So just because he's been arrested doesn't mean it's the end of the FTX saga. In fact, it's far from it, because what we'll start getting is a lot of concrete data and a lot of concrete facts now that this could potentially go to trial from FTX that Sam has been withholding, because he's been kind of playing this game on social media of not wanting to say too much and kind of painting this picture of him being kind of like a bit of a victim. But now he's going to have to be transparent. As soon as you hit the court of law, it becomes much harder to lie as you're going through testifying and that process as well. Someone said Caroline is too good looking to go to jail. She wouldn't survive. I agree, bro. She's way too good looking to go to jail. She's way too good looking to go to jail. So that's the SBF news, but I do have a lot of other market news to share with you, because it's a big week for crypto. So let's go through the big news of the week. This is honestly, and I know you probably heard this saying before, but honestly, this is one of the biggest days of the year for crypto. We're getting some massive macro news with the CPI update, and the market is kind of trading many coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, trading like stable coins at the moment ahead of some of the major news. So let's break down what is happening this week. This isn't a week to not be paying attention. You must pay attention this week. So we got the November CPI inflation data tomorrow. That's massive, massive news. We'll be live streaming that data on the channel as well. Then we have the Fed interest rate decision on Wednesday. So what will happen on tomorrow is we'll get the CPI data. This will show us whether inflation is getting better or getting worse based on last month's reading. And then the Fed interest rate decision will obviously be off the back of CPI data. It's widely believed, in fact, I'd say almost 99.999%, that it's a 50 BPS hike on Wednesday. I think what we got to look out for on Wednesday, though, isn't necessarily just the basis point hike. It's the language that they use around it. That's a very, very, very important factor on Wednesday. So all eyes on Jerome Powell speaking as well. We'll be live streaming that. We've got retail sales and jobless claims on Thursday, services and manufacturing PMI on Friday, and then we have more Q3 2022 earnings and results from companies the day after. So it's one of the biggest economic weeks of the year. In terms of the pure economic data that's coming out, we have the inflation, the rate hike decision, retail sales, jobless claims, manufacturing index, Philly manufacturing index, services, and manufacturing. So it's one of the biggest days of the year before Christmas. A lot of this data comes through, and this will largely dictate, in my opinion, how crypto will trade throughout the holiday season. And now I want to run you through some potential scenarios that could take place next week. TED Talks Macro did a very good thread on the current macro situation ahead of the CPI data. He said weeks don't get much bigger than this. On Tuesday is the US CPI. Core expected to increase plus 0.3 month on month, plus 0.3 for bearish impulse, less than 0.3 for bullish impulse. So what he's saying in terms of the CPI is that if we get higher than CPI, a higher reading than 0.3%, this would be bearish for the markets. And if we get a lower reading than 0.3%, this would be bullish for the markets, as this means inflation is coming down, and this means inflation is going up. So with the FOMC market pricing in 78% probability that the Fed slow down the pace of hikes to 50 BPS at this meeting, all eyes are on the language that he uses. So ING published a graph which specifies what language could potentially lead to what reaction on the market. This is a very interesting graph to look at. Dovish equals risk on, bullish for Bitcoin. These are the dovish scenarios stated here, and this is the base case stated next to it. And then hawkish means risk off, bearish for Bitcoin. So as you guys know, a lower interest rate hike is better for Bitcoin, or more dovish language surrounding the slowing pace of the hikes is bullish for Bitcoin. And if they get more hawkish, so keep alluding to language like continued hiking, continued rate cuts, this is obviously bad for the economy, bad for the stock market, and that would mean people going risk off in terms of Bitcoin. So it's going to be a very, very interesting day when the FOMC meeting takes place tomorrow, because that would give us a lot of clarity over where the market's headed. TED also says, more importantly, will obviously be the words, but also how this affects the forward guidance from updated economic predictions. As you guys know, we've been getting these updated dot plots every time we get the CPI data, and this shows us the expected pace of rate hikes or the target rate based on the current monetary policy plan. So every single meeting, we get an updated dot plot. How this dot plot changes based on the new data, that will also go a long way to determining how stocks and how equities, Bitcoin, etc. will react. Obviously, crypto being an extension of the traditional market in terms of risk means that if stocks rally, Bitcoin and crypto obviously rally a lot harder. If stocks falter, Bitcoin and crypto obviously falter a lot harder. So let's look at some of the price action heading into CPI. And as you can see, we've kind of coiled up into this tightening range between 16.9 and 17.3. This is where we've been hanging out since basically 2 weeks ago. We've just been bouncing in between this range. This has actually been quite a good range to trade in. As you guys know on the show, for the ones that watch my show every week, we did call the Bitcoin short at 17.3, and we also called Ethereum at 1.3 as well. We're actually 40% up on that trade. We're still 18% up if you're open. Hopefully you took profits. If not, well, you're still almost 20% up on 3.6x leverage. If you used higher leverage, you'd be up a lot more, 40, 50%. So we basically hit the nail on the head with that trade, and this has been a very good range to actually play, longing from the bottom of this range and shorting from the top of this range. So we are looking for a confirmed breakout to either side, and it doesn't take guesswork when it comes to CPI, guys. You don't need to be an expert and know exactly what Jerome Powell's going to come out and say, because not even the biggest experts around the world know exactly if he's going to be dovish or be hawkish. You just need to trade it based on Bitcoin's confirmation and based on the stock market's confirmation post FOMC. So I'm more than happy now to take a bit of a break just for the next day and see how things settle and then trade the breakout either way. If we do break out after the FOMC or the CPI data is bullish, then of course we can expect a retest of the 17.3 region. And then the targets for the upside are probably 17.5 to 17.7. This is kind of where we need to make another decision, because a sustained rally from there would mean a push up to the previous range low of 18.6. That would be quite an aggressive rally. And that would only happen off the back of extremely dovish language or a very good CPI print of lower than 0.3% month on month. Of course, there's also the bearish scenario, which you can trade the other way as well. And that would be a breakdown of this trend, a retest of the 16.9 region, and then a push down towards a target of likely 16.3. If we break 16.3, alarm bells, absolute panic in the market, because we will be testing those previous lows of 15.5 again. And as you guys know, the more we test a certain support level, the higher chance we have of breaking down. So a bounce off 16.4 would be preferred if we do get a breakdown to the downside if the data comes out negative. So that's just something to watch. You can play this either way. As I said, it doesn't take a genius. You can play the retest to the upside, and then you've got the upwards target. Probably I'd take profits at 17.65 and then again at 18K. And then also to the downside, you've got that TP area of 16.4. So I'll be trading this on Apex. I won't be opening a trade today. I still have my short in play. The reason why I haven't closed all my position, I did have some open on OKX, which I have already closed, keeping a small position open because we just rejected slightly earlier than the entry level. So you can set your stop loss to entry. Then it's a pretty risk-free trade now to stay in a short. And if we bounce up, you've already taken partial profits, and then the rest will get executed. So I'm pretty happy with where we sit with those entries. And that's kind of how I'll be playing Bitcoin over the next couple of days. But definitely relaxing from opening any new trades today, because you don't want to wreck yourself. In fact, I do think I have some data here of now the CPI is the most volatile that it's ever been. So US stocks are now seeing 3% move to either side on CPI data days whenever we get data announced, which is the most volatile the market's been since 2009. So, I mean, guys, it's very easy to get chopped in this market. It's very easy to get wrecked in this market. You have to be very cognizant of using stop losses, very aware of how much leverage you're using, and not risk too much capital. As you guys know, I'm more of a long-term trader. I usually keep around 5% of my total portfolio, or 5 to 10% in a trading portfolio. Happy to trade with that money, but the other 95% is geared towards my more long-term bets where I DCA into assets. So if you want to join me on that DCA side of things, I have a nested portfolio, which is where I build active portfolios for you guys. We're still up a few percent despite being the market going down. We've hit some good ones like Gains and Chainlink. So actually, we're at 98 copiers. When we get to 100 copiers, we're going to give away $1,000 to 2 people that have copied the portfolio as a thank you for joining along. And I'll be DCAing and managing these portfolios over time for the ones that want to join along and copy. So there's a link in the description to copy. As I said, that you'll be eligible for the giveaway. There's only a couple spots left. So if you sneak in, maybe I'll count it up to like 105 copies. But after then, we'll cut it off and then execute a giveaway. So yeah, those portfolios are tracking nicely and I'm managing them over time. Just back on the SBF thing for a second, Ryan Selkis said, the Justice Department will do its work. The rest of us can move on. I've got no interest in the circus, good riddance and onwards. Kind of makes a good point here. Like for me, at least, like my focus right now is identifying new narratives. I was actually going to do a show today on the biggest upcoming narrative for 2023 that I'm placing some pretty heavy bets on, but I don't think we can do it today because we just did the SBF show instead. So I'll be doing that tomorrow, and that's going to be going through the top narrative for 2023. And I think right now, as Ryan Selkis alludes to, like this is the time to not be focusing too much on others because we can't really control what happens with SBF now. This is a time to learn, to educate ourselves and continue looking for those next narratives, which can actually make us money in 2023. And that's basically what I dedicate every single day to on my Twitter, on my YouTube shows, to like finding you guys the upcoming narratives that can A, perform against the market, and B, perform in the next cycle. So on my Twitter today, I'll be doing a post of an unreleased token that I am really, really looking forward to the launch of in Q1 next year. And I'll also be doing a show tomorrow on the narrative off the back of that, which I think could perform very well next year. So that's kind of my plan over this next week or so. It's really just to dig deep into research as usual, and I suggest you guys do the same because we can't really affect what the Justice Department does. Although to be honest, it is a very fun rodeo to kind of stay involved with and cover. I'll just answer a few questions while I run through this thread here. This is Tree of Alpha's expected versus likely CPI data results. So what he says is don't get confused by a 7.3% estimated CPI compared to 7.7 previous month. Yearly CPI is a 12-month sliding window. This doesn't mean we're expecting a slowdown, only that November 2021 was a 0.9 increase and is not counted year on year anymore. So you got to be careful how you're reading inflation, whether it's year on year versus month on month. This is why, even though yearly CPI is expected to be lower than the previous one, the monthly change is only 0.1 lower, 0.4 to the expected 0.3. So we want to be comparing month on month and see if inflation's actually trending down, not based on the last 12 months where the data can get slightly skewed. As you guys know, that there was a lot of volatility in November, December 2021 with the inflation data after a long year of money printing. So Tree of Alpha, honestly, one of the best alpha accounts on Twitter, by the way, says his playbook is long 7.1% yearly CPI and below, short 7.5% and above. Wait for FOMC odds to be priced in before making a decision. As I said, we're not going to be trading right now. We're waiting for the FOMC decision, and then we'll trade afterwards either way, depending on the data that comes out. And he's aiming for a typical 0.2% deviation from forecast to take a decent non-PVP trade. So that's Tree of Alpha's playbook. He's a smart guy. That's pretty in line with my playbook as well. So I'll just go through and look through a couple questions now before I head on to Spaces, where I'll be talking on Mario's space for the news that just broke, which is pretty hot. Hope they arrest Alex. I don't think eventually it'll just kind of become a situation where these guys can't really run and hide anymore. I mean, Dubai's the first one to cooperate with the US. I'm sure there'll be more countries as well in the future. This was a very funny comment of the day. Someone repeated that. Cheers, Fanola, for joining. Who is Alex? Alex is Alex Mashinsky. He was the founder and CEO of Celsius Network. Obviously, he was caught in a web of lies on his own. Him and Sam both like extrapolating certain data, and well, I guess the less diluted way of saying that would be they like lying. So I think Dokwan's still in Serbia, or yep, I don't know where he is. As BitBoy said, he'll get served in Serbia. That was quite a funny joke. He paid them to arrest him so he doesn't need to testify. Interesting theory this. I don't think he paid anyone, but there definitely could be a scenario here where an arrest is a good excuse to get out of the hearing. I definitely think that's like a kind of out-of-pocket, interesting scenario. I don't think he necessarily paid them. I think the most logical explanation, the most logical conclusion to come to is that someone in the US, and by someone I mean probably a large group of people who obviously have had their eye on the situation for a while, they have been monitoring the situation and thought this was the opportune time to prosecute, and B, they don't want him stepping on US soil unless he gets arrested. And I think Sam knows that if he steps on US soil, that was a strong likelihood as well. So I guess they just expedited procedures here by getting the Bahamas to do it. But whether we see him try in the US is another matter. That's something that I definitely think could happen, considering that the US were the ones that actually put out the call for his arrest. SBF ends up like Epstein. Caroline ends up like or better than Ghislaine. Yeah. All right, cool. So I'm going to be heading over to Spaces now. So if you want to continue the conversation, you can head over to Spaces, and I'll be chatting with Mario and the gang about the SBF arrest and what we think it might mean. We'll go a little bit more in depth. But until then, I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. EST, where I'll be discussing the narrative in 2023 that I think could perform very, very well, that I'm personally placing my bets on. And yeah, until then, I will see you in the next one. Have a lovely day. Peace out.